Hello and welcome to the Slumbering Sloth Book Nook, a podcast about all things books, publishing and much more. My name is Emma and today my guest is Ellie Pilcher. Ellie is the campaigns officer at Cornello, the digital publisher. Ellie has a vast experience with social media and online content. Now on with the show. Welcome Ellie, hello.
Hello.
Hi. So thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate you wanting to come on the podcast. That's very, very nice. So just a first question. Can you tell us a bit about your role and what you do in your job?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I've got the rather strange title of campaigns officer, which not many people ever know what it means. But basically, I'm at a startup company, or was a startup company called Canello. It's only been running for 3 years. So the campaigns officer role is all of marketing and all of publicity in one role. So I used to be marketing and publicity executive, and then I got promoted. So now I'm campaigns officer, and I handle all the marketing and publicity campaigns for every single one of our books.
You sound like a busy bee then. It's a very busy job.
Oh, oh yeah,
Unbelievably
very
busy.
busy.
Yes, is that what a normal day for you is quite busy then, would you say?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm an early bird anyway, which is great. But I get into the office probably half an hour early, which isn't the best way to start your day. If you're, you should probably stick to your work hours. But I like to be busy. But it's kind of full on from 8:30 until about 5 o'clock, and then networking events afterwards as well, and keeping track of social media outside of work. So quite a busy and intense time, but I enjoy it. So
It's never ending.
never ending. But at least, I mean, if you're in publishing, you've got to do it because you love books and everything. So
Exactly. Why else would you be doing it?
precisely, it's like, why else would I be getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning on weekends just to double check that something went out? You know,
Yes, exactly. Because that's commitment. That is.
that is, yeah. I don't do that often, to be fair.
No, don't. That's great. So, would you say your role has lots of different avenues that you've sort of gained through experience? So, when you traditionally obviously come into a role, you obviously have you've got to acquire certain skills. Would you say that most of your skills have been gained through your role?
Probably, yeah, because this is kind of wasn't my first full-time role in the publishing industry, but it was in the trade publishing industry. So I don't know if you know the difference between trade and business to business and sales and academic stuff.
Basic stuff. I obviously know the difference between like
Oh,
academic
yeah.
and trade, so I kind of know a bit about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So previously to the job I'm currently in, I actually was a administrator for a publishing recruitment company. So I handled HR for all different varieties of publishing. And then this was my first ever job in fiction and non-fiction publishing. It's been a very steep learning curve because I kind of, like I said, it was a startup. So I was kind of thrown in with this small team, with a brand new business, and never having really worked full time in that role. So I've definitely learned a lot through that. But to be honest, the reason they hired me, because you kind of think, I say that and people go, so why did they hire you if you didn't have experience? And the general rule of thumb for me was their social media. I was kind of a bit of a social media obsessive, shall we say. And everything I've ever done with social media has kind of led to my current job. And that's one of my main parts of my job right now is monitoring and updating and getting up to scratch and making it as entertaining as possible, our Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So
Yeah, because social media is so important now to
yeah.
promotion, to marketing, for everything
Yeah.
nowadays. And I've definitely seen how it's grown on Twitter. I mean, you know this, the Twitter sphere of publishing is incredible. I would say it's incredible how everybody is connected. And then you go and see a book, and you're like, I need to read that, like, right now.
Yeah, I've got way too many books on my Kindle right now, which have just come from seeing them on Twitter or seeing someone I know or respect in the community who said, "Oh my God, this book is amazing!" Amazing. I think right now that book is probably Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I'm seeing that everywhere, and I've
Yeah,
already
it's
read it, and I
huge.
bought it again.
I know. I mean, the one I've seen at the moment is Cersei. That
Oh,
one. I
Madeline
can't remember
Miller.
who wrote it. I'm really
Madeline.
terrible at keeping up to date sometimes with things. But I saw it today and I went, just one more. And I'm like, no, I have to keep up to date. But I've got so much to read already. Like, I did a placement last year and I've still got books that is still sitting on
Yeah.
my shelf from that. So I'm
Oh, yeah.
slowly trying trying to get through them on top of my hefty degree reading, but
That's a good point,
it's,
actually.
yeah.
I've still got books from my internships, and I haven't been an intern in like 2.5 years. And I'm actually looking at one right now. I was like, oh, I should probably read that. I haven't read
Yeah.
it yet.
My plan is to read quite a lot of them on my holiday, so I can
Yeah, I
get
have this as
kind of
well.
sit like and do a complete like deck chair 6 day read kind of one book, but like taking
Mhm.
6 books. I will read like that much on holiday. I will.
Oh yeah, I've got that for the plane. It's kind of like, right, audiobook, ebook, paperback, hardback, and then I'll buy some when I get to, because I'm going to America next week, so
Oh,
that I'll buy some
fantastic!
when I get to the airport.
Yes, more, 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 more,
More,
more.
more, more, more. Precisely.
Exactly, exactly. So I know you talked a bit about your career before you worked at Cornello.
Mhm.
So what was your journey into publishing prior to obviously getting to Cornello? I know you said you were an administrator, but what did you do to get
Prior to
into?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mainly for me it started at university. So I went to university to study acting. I wanted to be I wanted to go and win an Oscar.
Mm.
That was never going to happen. And while I was there, it was a very American style university. So we were told to pick majors and minors. So I had acting, history, and creative writing as my majors and minors.
Oh,
And ultimately, I graduated with a history and creative writing degree. I completely dropped the acting. And
yeah.
through creative writing, one of my modules in the second year was actually to create a magazine, but through that, I was the commissioning editor. And I started just reading those and I went on the publishing community to get tips on Twitter again. And I was already a book blogger at this point as well. I basically to get out of it, I was in a bit of a loneliness period of time at university. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to people, and one of those things I loved to talk about was books. So I started a book blog as well. So all of that kind of combined and talking through the publishing people on Twitter, I ultimately realized, oh, this is an industry I'm actually really interested in. And in my final year of university, I was really, really lucky, and I managed to get a 1 day a week internship at a literary agency in London. And my university was in Hertfordshire, so it was like a half an hour train. And for 1 day a week up until from November to April, I went to that agency, dealt with their contracts, their websites, their social media, all of that stuff. And it was a real learning curve and proper absorption of information. And then I actually lost that internship the last day of university
Oh,
because they needed to hire somebody, and it was very quick and long story. But anyway, great learning curve anyway. And I went on to the Penguin Random House work experience and kind of oh no, I've just finished university and I've just lost an internship. Now what do I do? And actually, I was really lucky, and they had a 2 week work experience starting the following Monday. And
oh,
they said,
lucky.
yeah, we need someone, you can come in. I was like, oh, great. So I did a 2 week internship at Transworld in their publicity department.
Okay.
And then after that, it was just 3 months of applying, applying, applying. And I must have applied for about 67 or something jobs. It's a really random number, but it was
Did
like
you keep a track of every single job you applied
oh,
for?
yeah. Excel spreadsheets, the ones
Yes,
where you got to
yes, my
reply.
good friend has said to me, keep everything on an
Yeah,
Excel spreadsheet. Says you will not, like, when you get rejections or
yeah.
whatever, you will never like, okay, oh, when did I apply for that? Oh,
Yeah,
it's,
precisely. You're lucky if you get rejections. That was the thing for me, is that after applying for the first 20 odd jobs, I think I heard back from one, and I couldn't remember where I'd applied.
when I'd applied.
Chris was like, did I apply for that job already? I haven't heard back. Oh, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's very common. It's an unfortunate side effect of the breaking into the publishing industry, but you can just have to persevere, really. But I got a few interviews, and eventually I think after 3 months, I was going a bit stir crazy. And I got this interview for the publishing administrator role at the recruitment company. And they were really lovely, and they just charmed me. And I thought, you know what? This is a great way to learn about the industry, because I was still fairly new. I only had one literary agency internship and a 2 week work experience. So I thought this is going to be a great learning chance for me. So I took the job, loved it. I was only there for 8 months, but I really, really did enjoy it. And then the reason I got the Canelo job is I wasn't really looking, but it came up on my Twitter feed, and I read it and I thought I can do all of that, and I applied and got lucky and got the job. So it really is, for me, it's a lot of luck, and I know people hate it when they hear that because they're thinking, well, what happens if that doesn't happen to me? But for me, it was definitely social media, perseverance, and a lot of luck.
Yeah, exactly. I think you need to be so headstrong in a very competitive industry, and I think I've spoken to so many people saying that they get to a point going, I can't do this anymore. Like they just keep getting to the point where they're like, I want to try something else. Or, but it's as I said, it's perseverance, luck, and just a lot of hard graft. I
It
think.
really is. I've just got a friend of mine actually. He and I were both in the same university year, and he kind of dabbled on the idea of going to publishing as well. But he did an MA, and then when he came out of it, he didn't have any work experience on him, and he was like, I really want to get into publishing, but I'm now overqualified, and now what do I do? But he managed to break into publishing in this year. He's now in sales at Hachette, which is amazing. And so, I mean, that took him a good, 3, 4 years. And he was ready to just say, you know what, I've got a good job elsewhere when he got an interview finally. And like I said, he got the job.
Exactly.
So,
That's great. It's good to know that
yeah.
these things do happen.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always makes you feel like, oh, so nice. Okay, so when you're working at Cornello and you're doing campaigns and obviously marketing campaigns, how do you guys start an idea? So if you've got a new release and you're like, right, we need to figure out how to market this, how do you start the creative process?
So for me, we kind of, I don't really get a choice in the books anymore. I did when I started because we were a really small company, so we all read everything and really contributed to that. Because we've grown now, we've now got a really large editorial team of about 6 or 7 people. They read all the submissions and acquire the books that they think have got really good stories or really good backgrounds or anything like that. And then I kind of get past them and I read as many as I can. It's a kind of a myth in publishing that all the publishers read everything they publish. Doesn't happen.
Nope.
But we read as much as we can. And then depending on so we do a lot of reissues. So we get a lot of books that were maybe published back in 80s, 70s, that kind of era. And then we repackage them and then republish them as ebooks. So with those, I don't really have too much to do. It's mostly ads and things like that and just finding keywords and describing them and making them sound as amazing as they are. But then with the other campaigns, which are kind of like the debut books, the brand new ones from brand new authors that we've commissioned or an agent has approached us with, I tend to read those, or at least read as much of it as I can. Sometimes if you've got 30 books out a month, as we do, you kind of have to read the first 20% and then the last 10 pages, and then you get an idea from that. But for me, it's read it as much as possible, and then keywords, where do I think the audience is? And I think with marketing, that's really key. So if you have a women's fiction or a contemporary romance or something like that, you're not about to market it to men over 60. So you really have to kind of pull it in. But then also it's things like we have a book that's set at the Jane Austen Festival. It's like, oh, great. Why don't I talk to the Jane Austen Festival, which we've done. And now we've got a launch event with them this year, which is going to be fantastic. And then we've got other books that are set in the Lake District and they're crime fiction. It's like, oh, I'm going to get in touch with some libraries up there and I'm going to talk to some people that live in the area and see if they can get me any photos and I can use that for social media. And it's all just kind of having as many ideas as possible, trying to get as many of them in process or something like that, and just reaching out to people and seeing what you can do. And then you kind of get half and half. It's kind of half fail because they're just so extravagant, and then the other half succeed. And it's normally the ones you don't think will succeed that do.
Yeah,
So
of course.
it's all brainstorming and writing it all down and keywords and talking to people as well. It really helps if someone else in the office or more than one person in the office has read the book or really loves it, because then you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and that's really useful.
That's great. That's really, really awesome. Would you say that book bloggers are a massive part of your sort of reach when it comes to talking to people? Would you say that the community, the book blogging community, is quite big in that?
I think so. I'm kind of biased because I was a book blogger. I don't do it as much now because just of time. But when I came into Canelo, I had this massive database of all my book blogging friends and their genres that they love reading and whatnot, which was really, really helpful. And I'm still in touch with a lot of them. And I think at Canelo, when I first started, bloggers were really, really super important because being a startup, we didn't have much money and we really had to work with people that were willing to, in good faith, kind of do book reviews and extracts and talk to the author. So they were fantastic. Now it's slightly different, not just because of money or anything like that, but I do a lot of blog tours and there's just me. So I do about 7 or 8 blog tours, which can last up to 2 weeks with 3 bloggers posting per day, and they need to have all the marketing materials. And so you have such brilliant reach on social media. But
Mm-hmm.
if you've got a book where you're targeting audiences over a certain age, or it's smaller reach, sometimes bloggers aren't as helpful. So, and that's not, there's nothing they can do about that completely. They're amazing. So it's half and half. I really enjoy working with them, and I love hearing their thoughts and their reviews. And I get so much. To be honest, the keywords thing I mentioned, a lot of those come from the bloggers saying, "Oh, I love this. It was thrilling and gripping and unbelievably unique," and all this other stuff. So they're great for quotes as well. So but I enjoy the blogging community.
Yeah, of course. Especially nowadays, you've got such a there's feedback everywhere, isn't there, when it comes to new releases or reviews? I mean, you've got like Goodreads, and then also you've got Amazon reviews, and anybody can just say, right, okay, I enjoyed this book. I would recommend.
Mm.
People recommend to each other, and you just look. I look on Goodreads and say, oh, there's a book that I want to read, but I'm not quite sure. It's
Mm.
really helpful to see people that have already read it
Yeah,
and how much of a reach you can get. So
yeah. I think so. It's also really great for the authors. So particularly we had an author party last night actually for Canelo.
I saw it on Instagram. Was it fun?
It was a lot of fun. I'm knackered today, I must admit. It was
Oh,
a long night, but it was really worth it. But speaking to our authors, who we don't get to see as much because they're spread all over, and all of them, one of the things that you get quite is common in any author, as I suspect it is for many people in different industries, is of course it's their baby, it's their work of art, so they want to know that it's good, and they're worried that people aren't enjoying it. So when bloggers post reviews or just share a lovely comment on Twitter or Facebook, it really makes their day and just kind of it calms them down, it makes them feel appreciated, and also it kind of inspires them to keep writing and to write the next book and make it as good or even better. So bloggers do really help in lots of different ways. I think we don't mention that as much. We kind of think, oh yeah, they're great for publicity and free promo and everything, but actually they're also really good at kind of supporting the authors as much as an editor would do, for example.
of course, because it's good to have that human to human contact as
Mm.
well when it comes to even if you're behind a screen, it still
Yeah.
means so much, I guess, when somebody goes, "Oh my god, I love your book," and they're
Mm.
like, "Oh, it made my day." So
It does, it really does.
yeah, that's
Really.
lovely. That's cool. So we're kind of turning a bit of a different avenue now. Nothing too scary, I promise. What is your advice to budding young publishers who want to pursue a career in marketing or publicity or both, or what
Mhm.
you kind of do?
A mix. So I think the main thing for me, which I always tell people I speak to one on one, whenever they say, "Oh, I'd love to do what you do," or "I'd love to be in publishing," is that you really have to be on social media and a part of that world. I mean, you don't. It's not 100% that's how you'll get your job, but it really does help, and also it's a support group as well. But I got all of my jobs because of social media. I got my internship, my administrative job. I actually got promoted to social media coordinator whilst I was there, and it was only a temporary position, and they promoted me, which is quite unique. And that was because of social media. And then at this job, I got because of social media again. So it really is important in marketing and publicity because not only is it a great way of meeting people and networking, it's also really good proof that you know what you're doing and you know how to talk to people and build an audience because you're building your own personal brand. So I really recommend that. And then, as I said before, it's perseverance. You need to have a thick skin and be ready for not a fight so much, but be really, really patient and just keep going because you're going to get knocked. It's like any job, it's like anything in life, really. You're going to get knockbacks and you're going to think, oh, this isn't worth it. And it really is. I mean, I love being in publishing. But yeah, it's definitely social media and perseverance. And I think applying for everything within reason. So don't start applying for a marketing manager role if you've never had a full-time job. But if you see an assistant role, no matter if you want to be in marketing and publicity, you can still apply for editorial assistant roles and then change because it's all about that. Those assistant roles are very much administrative and learning the layout and learning the industry. So you can always change. So we've got my friend actually has joined Canelo recently, and she was a publicity assistant, but she wanted to be an editorial. So she's recently changed from publicity assistant to editorial assistant because she already knew the layout of the land, she already had contacts, she already knew how to talk to people, and it was great. Now she's on her way to becoming a commissioning editor one day.
That's great. That's really good
Yeah.
news. Yeah, especially that's what I think. You can't really be picky. You kind of have to be. You can get in once you're in.
Once
then
you're in, you're
you're
in.
in. Yeah, exactly. And then you're in that space. I think getting into it is the hardest thing, isn't it?
Mm,
Would you say
it
it's
really is.
the hardest thing is getting in, and then once you're in there, you can sort of go, actually, I'd like to dabble at this or try this.
Yeah, because no one will ever have a go at you for saying, you know what, this isn't for me, this part of the industry, I'd really like to try production, or I'd really like to try design or something like that. No one will ever say, no, you can't do that, you're an editorial person now. So, but like I say, it's the difficult part is getting in, and I kind of joke to people and say it's kind of like a catch-22 secret society almost thing, because it feels like you'll never get in, and then when you do, you'll never get out.
You're stuck in there.
You're kind of stuck here. I mean, you can always go freelance or something, and that's actually something else. I know a lot of people who are my age, I'm only 23, and a lot of them are freelancers as marketeers or editorial people. And it's a great way if you haven't had a job to get experience, so long as you have some credentials behind you, like a
Yeah.
course or something, or some, if it's marketing or publicity, you have some sort of evidence to show that you know what you're doing, you know how to organize a blog tour, or you know how to contact journalists and get articles or book reviews, something like that. But that's another way in as well. If you kind of want to, if you don't want to wait for someone to give you a job, make your own, basically.
That's a great bit of advice because I think if you can't do it, you're just like, right, I'm going to do it myself. It's a bit like what I've just done. I've just gone, right, I'm going to do my own thing, especially in my part of the world. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I feel a lot older going to uni at 20. I was like 22 and I was like, I feel so old compared to everybody else. But I'm just about to, like, want like another year. I'm like 25. I'm like, I haven't done everything. It's like, it's fine.
fine.
It's fine. I've got time. It's fine.
Totally fine. I was kind of the same thing as you. It was kind of, I mean, I remember leaving school at 18 and thinking, being really upset because I hadn't achieved anything. And then my friend just turned around and said, Ellie, you've just left school. What are you meant to have done? So I've always been a bit of a desire to be an overachiever, I think. But I think that's where I get my perseverance from, in a way, my motivation to keep going.
Exactly. And I think the more sometimes you get knocked down with rejections or no matter what, I think it probably makes you stronger, would you say, in some
Yeah,
ways?
you do. It's you have to fail to succeed, and that's kind of the harsh lesson in life. But you kind of do, because it's all about building the thick skin and also knowing it's not the end of the world. So, I mean, my first ever interview, I didn't get the job, and I was really disheartened because I thought I smashed that interview. And actually, I'm still friends with the person that interviewed me, and it was her company.
Yeah.
He was like, "I really liked you. Stay in touch. You're just not right for this role." And it was like I say, it was shattering, particularly since that was the first reply I got in a month. But actually, now I look back and I do look and I think, actually, you know what? She was right. I wasn't right for that role. I didn't want that. I wouldn't have been as good at that job, and I might have got stuck in something and not been able to find a way out. So you have to learn from the failures as much. I'm kind of starting to sound like Karamo Brown out of Queer Eye. I'm fine
Keep
with.
that wisdom coming. Come
Oh,
on.
yes, exactly. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think it helps. It's kind of it's all about learning and picking up the pieces and just carrying on. It's the whole British keep calm and carry on thing, isn't it?
Love it. I absolutely love it. If you can get through that, you can get through anything.
Yes, if you
Awesome.
can get through the interview process of getting into the publishing industry, you can do it.
You can do it. I think there's nothing more than I've done probably a couple of years ago, even when I just went for a job interview and didn't get the job, and I was like sat
Mm.
at home with a glass of wine in my hand going, I can't do this, Ellie.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
just a job I didn't even do. But I'm not going to do that. I promise this time I will never do that. So finally, we come to nearly the end.
Oh, wow, that's big.
What is the book that you have read quite recently that you would highly recommend? I know we talked about Queenie earlier, but that was in terms of new releases. Is there something that you've been gripped by quite recently that you must tell everybody about?
Actually, yes, it's quite a weird one. I don't think I should really say a Canelo book here, but they're all great. But the one actually I read recently, which I just love and I couldn't wait to pick up, was actually a non-fiction book. It was called Departures by Anna Hart.
I've
It's
heard of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's about this woman who just decided to just basically traveled the world, and she's a bit hapless and a bit funny and everything else, but she writes really, really well, and it inspired me so much that I finished it at 9 o'clock at night, went on my computer and booked tickets to New York City. So I'm off to New York next week because of this book.
Yay! That sounds
It's good.
awesome. I
Like,
know. Sometimes you just get the wanderlust and you're like, I'm
it
gonna go
is.
here.
It was the way she wrote. Every chapter was a different place. So one place it was Thailand, the next place was America, the next place was Australia, and each place she wrote about, even when things went terribly wrong, like she was a really bad car accident in Thailand. But I was just like, I can't wait to go to Thailand one day. It made it sound great.
I just watched because I went backpacking around Australia like years ago, and I remember seeing something, and it was like, I just want to go.
Yeah,
now. And I think you just go, right, I've got the motivation, let's do this.
yeah,
But,
precisely.
I mean, we'd love to go to Japan at one point. Me and my partner would love to do it. And I think, you know, even if you read, because we've just bought the Penguin collection of Japanese short fiction,
Oh, nice.
and we've been reading some of that, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I want to see more of this kind of different stuff. And it just, you know, you're like, oh, I need to actually like go and travel now. I'm just like, oh, I need to go and travel and have a look at all this stuff.
I've done that ever since I booked. I don't know why I chose New York. I think it's just because they speak English. That's really terrible. That's the main reason we're going, because I'm going on my own.
All right.
So, but ever since then, it's like I must read books that are set in New York. So I've been on a real New York book bender, shall we say?
Yeah,
So,
you've got plenty of options. Yes, exactly. No, that's great. Well, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, and I hope your time in New York is absolutely amazing. Have an amazing time.
All over Instagram, all over Twitter.
Oh, I will be following on Instagram. I'm probably going to see it. Am I going to see any more party pictures on Connors?
Possibly, if I can find them on my phone. It's like I don't think that's the best angle for somebody.
No, we've all been there. Don't worry about it. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's really enjoyable. I have it kind of like on my checklist today of this year was like I must be on a podcast. It's like the new thing in the world.
It is, and to be honest, I didn't think. I mean, I've always wanted to do something creative, and it's always been like, I'll do it later. No, I'm actually gonna get off my arse and actually do something. So
It's really impressive. I mean, I'd love to do it, but I have no idea when I'd even start. So just being on a podcast is great.
That's great. Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on, because honestly, it's so nice talking to publishing people, because half the time I'm like, I live in Plymouth, nothing happens down here.
My sister lives in Plymouth as well, so
no way. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, small world.
It is a very small world. All right, well, thank you very much, Ellie. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have an amazing time in New York, all right?
Thank you, you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Ellie for coming on the podcast today. You can follow Ellie on Twitter at ElliePilcher95. If you would like to get involved with the podcast, you can tweet me at NovelM16 and use the hashtag Slothcast, or alternatively, you can email at theslumberingSlothBookNook@gmail.com. You can watch the podcast on YouTube at The Slumbering Sloth Book Nook, and you can also download via Podbean for an on-the-go experience. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.